Welcome to Game Design, an introduction to the powerful Unity3D game engine. Unity is an incredibly powerful game engine used by all the major studios to create unbelievable games for mobile devices and all the popular systems. If you're into playing video games, chances are you've already played a video game created inside the Unity engine. This course is designed for those who are completely new to the Unity engine, and we're going to be taking things step by step, introducing you to all the major components of the engine, and we'll actually finish things off by creating an entire level from scratch without the need to know any coding whatsoever. I'll start things off by showing you how to create primitive shapes and objects which you can use to build simple levels. From there, we'll jump straight into texturing. I'll show you how to apply textures to all these different objects, and we'll even get into some tree generation. We're going to be covering the different types of lights and how to adjust them inside Unity. And I'll even review step by step how to create your own particle systems so you can create some very interesting effects. And once you're done learning how to build your very own game level inside Unity, I'm going to show you how to apply a game controller so you can actually play that level and explore it both from a first-person and a third-person point of view. And finally, I'll show you how simple it is to create a build of your game that you can publish on a mobile device or major consoles like the Xbox or PlayStation or even the web. We have a ton of fun things to learn, so let's jump right in and get started learning all about the Unity game engine. So before we get started, of course, we need to figure out where can we download Unity, and also what is Unity and what does it do. So if you go to Unity3D.com, you're going to be at the Unity website. Now, Unity is an amazing application that develops video games, and video games for all sorts of consoles and devices and platforms, but we'll get into that in a second. When you visit the Unity website, and it might look different depending on what time you're viewing this video than what you see on the screen at the moment, but there'll always be a download link. So you're going to want to locate that download link, which is usually right here in the top right hand corner. We'll click on that, and then you can just simply click and download Unity, and then you can download the binary or the executable and save that file as needed. Now I've already downloaded Unity, so I'm just going to skip this process. And let's just jump into kind of what Unity is. So again, here on the Unity website, you can see that Unity creates video games for any iOS device, so that means the iPhone, the iPad, the iPod, even the Mac, any Android device, Windows, Mac as I already said, even Linux, all major web browsers. You can output to Flash, you can output your Unity projects to the PlayStation, the Xbox, and even the Nintendo Wii. And that is one of the reasons why I love Unity so much, is when you build a project inside Unity, you can then output it to pretty much everything on planet Earth. So when you're getting into game development, Unity is an excellent program to use because you can reach the largest audience possible. Now, something else that you want to do here on the Unity website, other than just kind of looking over some of the features and getting inspired by this, because they really do a great job at showing you everything Unity can do, is actually jumping right into the gallery. So if we click on the gallery icon here, you'll notice that underneath the gallery there's Demos by Unity. We can click on that, and then there's a bunch of live demos that you can actually work with. I'm just going to click the play button on Tropical Paradise. Now, I've already installed a Unity plugin which lets Unity play inside my web browser. So you might need to do that when you press play. So go ahead and install that plugin now if it's asking for that. But all of these live demos were created inside Unity with the Unity game engine, and you can actually explore them right in your browser, which shows you how efficient Unity is even in a browser setting. So you can see this is the Paradise Island demo, and take a moment to just explore. This really kind of shows you the terrain system inside Unity, the lighting, the shadows, everything that you can kind of work with here inside Unity. And there's an endless number of demos here on the website that you can explore and kind of get inspired. The reason I like to tell students to do this is just because it's really inspiring to see where you can go with this system, and it just gives you some great ideas moving forward as to what you're going to be working with. Water simulations and amazing, endless list of resources that you're going to be working with here inside Unity. We can even see that our camera's blurring. And I'm sure most of you are gamers at this point, which is why you're interested in actually creating your own video games. So you'll be able to tell the difference between the Unity engine's quality and other engines that you might be working with. But again, just from a usability point of view and the ability to output to different consoles, Unity is really one of my favorite tools to use. And also the ability to just work with different 3D applications. Unity itself, other than great terrain like this, often doesn't create the assets that you have inside the engine. So you're not going to be creating the characters inside Unity, or guns or boxes, or anything that you would work with inside Unity. You're not necessarily going to be creating those things in Unity at all. What you're going to be doing is creating those in a 3D modeling application and then importing those things into Unity from that 3D modeling application. So with that said, which 3D modeling application should you learn, or maybe you already know, that plays well with Unity? Well, again, Unity is great because it pretty much works with all major 3D modeling applications. So maybe you know Maya, maybe you know 3D Studio Max, maybe you know Blender, maybe you don't even know what I'm talking about right now, and that's fine. But Unity really just gives you the ability not only to use whatever 3D application you want to use to model the assets, but then of course when you want to output to any device on the planet, Unity gives you that ability as well. So take a moment to download Unity and have fun exploring these demos. Like I said, there's a lot of them down here. You can see there's a lot of different demos that give you a good feel of what's going on inside the Unity game engine. And then let's get started with the rest of the videos learning how to use Unity. Now, depending on whether you've installed Unity on your system before or this is the first time you're launching Unity, you may have a different screen than the one I'm looking at here. In fact, you might be actually presented with a splash screen which asks you to either enter a serial number, the free version of Unity, or the 30-day trial. Now, nothing that we're going to go over in these tutorials is specific to one of these versions, the pro version, the free version, or the 30-day trial. But if you're presented with this screen, I suggest clicking on the free version. That way you have access to Unity, and as you learn, you can decide whether you want to upgrade to maybe the pro version of Unity. And at this point you don't have to pay for anything, and also your 30-day trial won't run out then. So just go ahead and click on the free version. If you have the 30-day trial already selected before watching this video, or the pro version, again, don't worry about it, but just so everybody's on the same page, if you can, select the free version. Also, if it's the first time that you're launching Unity, you may have an interface that looks pretty much like mine right now. Or if you are working in a school or on somebody else's computer that have already used Unity, then you might have a very different screen with the project loaded in. So in this video, I just simply want to take a moment to get everybody on the same page. The first thing that we can do is go up to File and down to New Project. This is going to create all the different project folders that you needed, so we'll click Create New Project. Unity will take a moment to reset itself. You'll be presented with the Unity screen, and then you should have a blank, empty new project to start working with. Also, if someone has configured the different windows that are here inside Unity, it may again look very different than what I'm working with here, and we want to all be on the same page. So let's go up to Windows, down to Layouts, and let's revert factory settings. Click Continue, and then Unity will revert back to the factory settings as far as the window layout is concerned. So again, by creating a new project and by going to your layouts and reverting back to the factory settings, you should be looking at what I'm looking at here. Now, things are still a little different. Don't freak out. These videos will be very step-by-step and easy to follow, so you should be able to follow along. But by doing those two steps, we really should all be on the same page now. Now, when you launch Unity for the very first time, especially if you launch into a blank project, things are going to look very empty and very boring. And we'll take things step by step, but I kind of like to inspire students right off the bat so you can do a little bit of exploring on your own and get excited about all the different options and possibilities we have inside Unity. So let's just take a look at a completed project. And then after we've kind of seen how amazing that is, we'll step it back and then we'll start looking at each individual step in creating a scene, creating simple objects, and navigating around our scene. But I just wanted to take you back to the Unity website for a moment so you could see the wealth of resources that are available. As I said in an earlier video where I was talking about what a big fan I was of Unity, because of all the different places that you could output to and all the different devices that you could create games for and all the different 3D packages that you can use to get assets into Unity. Another reason I'm a big fan of Unity is because of its huge community. Not only are there a ton of people using Unity that are here to help and communicate and share ideas, but Unity also has an asset store. So again, the website that you're looking at right now might be different to the live one depending on when you're watching this video. But you want to navigate to the Asset Store. So go ahead and click on the Asset Store link. And then underneath in the sublinks, you'll see that there's an option here to browse. So Asset Store and then Browse. And then inside the Asset Store, you're going to see that there is a tremendous amount of Unity projects already set up. These are entire levels. So if you've never done any sort of game design, but maybe even just a little bit of 3D work and some 3D applications, now is your chance to do a behind the scenes of getting into some amazing games, some completed games, so you can really understand all the work and all the assets that go into the games. And in two ways, it can be both completely inspiring and completely overwhelming. So don't get too overwhelmed by everything that you see here. But again, I like to, instead of just jumping into a completely blank screen like this, to jump into something a little bit more finished. So in this asset store, there's a bunch of paid assets, some that are hundreds of dollars and others that are free. So you'll notice over here on the right there's a link that says Top Free. We have a few different top free assets, and these are completed Unity projects with all the artwork, all the 3D models, all the music sounds, and the entire setup inside the Unity engine itself. So I'm just going to go down to the Unity Project 01 Stealth. And when I click on that, you're going to notice that there's this option here to launch it in Unity. But before we do that, what's great is you can check out some screenshots of the project itself. And you can also scroll through all the different assets that are available. Now, right now, as you're new to Unity, you have no idea what any of this stuff really is. But essentially, this is what you're downloading when you download the entire project file. This has things like textures and models and materials and lights and scripts and all sorts of things that you're going to be checking out. And if you want, you can actually click on any of these and you'll get a preview over on the right hand side. So you can take a look at the sound files, the material files, the different texture files, and even some of the 3D models will pop up over here on the right hand side, so you can preview all of this. You can also check out user reviews down here at the bottom, which in most cases for many of these projects that are put together by the Unity company itself, everyone's very, very happy and impressed with them. So for this Unity Project 01 Stealth, we're just going to click this Open in Unity. Click OK. And then it's essentially opened up this mini browser inside Unity. You may have to sign in at this point. I already have a Unity login, so if you haven't created an Asset Store login, take a moment to do so, either through the site or through Unity itself. So if you didn't get this exact window, no fear. Just go ahead and log in, create the account, and then repeat the steps that I just mentioned earlier in this video. We can click Download. And now it's downloading that complete project. So this entire Stealth project with all these amazing assets are being downloaded to my computer right now, and in a moment we'll be able to go ahead and launch this project. Once everything's had a chance to download, you're going to get this import dialog box, which shows you all the different assets that you're going to be importing. These are things like textures, animation files, 3D models, a whole host of things, materials, scripts, List goes on and on and on. So you don't have to be concerned as to what these things are right now. Just understand this process of Unity is the type of tool that really doesn't have anything inside of it. Again, we can create some simple objects, which we'll get into, but Unity is a tool where we bring everything from other tools like 3D modeling packages, and we assemble it here inside Unity. So we'll import all of these. And depending on how large each individual project is, the import process will obviously, the timing will take longer with some larger projects and obviously a lot shorter with smaller projects. But when you think about a video game, next time you're playing one or working on one here inside Unity, just take a moment to appreciate how many different assets are inside that video game. When you think of the floor, the sky, the characters, the atmospheric particle effects, fire, water, every tiny grain of sand that you see in that video game has really been created, and we have to import those things into our game assembly engine, in this case being Unity. Now, one thing I like to stress to students is don't just blindly watch these bars go across. It's very easiest for us to kind of detach. Even though this is whizzing by kind of fast, take a look at what the extension is in the files here. Now, on this video, you're not going to be able to see that because it's probably too small, but as I'm looking at this, I'm seeing the folder that it's being brought into, the file name, and the file type. So I can see this is being brought into the textures folder, which obviously to me means what's taking so long here? A lot of textures are being imported. And I can see that those textures are being set up as, or they were created as .tiff textures. You can have PNGs or JPEGs, but the point that I'm trying to make right now is instead of going off and grabbing a bite to eat while this import process is happening, take a moment to understand what's going on in the background. I've taught a lot of 3D modeling classes, and now we're learning about game development, and the folders and the hierarchies that all of these things are set up in is very important to learn. Students that take the time to really understand maybe some of these more boring aspects of game development actually become the very best game developers, because you're never really stuck in a specific area. You understand how the entire system works. So I know it might be boring to kind of read through these, but as this is important in importing, take a moment to really understand what's going on. And we can, understand that we're working with shaders, we're working with textures. Now we're importing smaller assets, which obviously don't take a long time at all. Audio files I can see being imported right now. It just gives you an animation files, models. Now we're going into our models. It just gives you a broad understanding of exactly what's going on with a specific project before we even get into learning anything about Unity already. We just kind of are already learning what it takes to build an entire game. It takes all these different assets. Also, that way when you see things like FXB and other extensions, it won't seem that confusing later on. Okay, so we're finally done importing. And you can see down here in our assets, we have a whole bunch of different folders that we can start taking a look at and working with. But we're still kind of working with a very blank, empty scene here. So what we want to do is navigate to the finished scene. So you see down here in this asset library that we have all these different folders: animation, animators, audio, done, fonts, materials, models, prefab, scenes, scripts, shaders, and textures. A lot of different folders to work with. What we want to actually do is navigate over to the Done folder. Now that's just specific to this project. Other projects might have different folder structures. So let's just double click on Done. And inside the Done folder you should see Done Scenes. So let's double click on that as well. And you can see a Done Stealth. So let's double click on this Unity icon that we see here. We'll click Don't Save because we just had a blank scene that Unity is going to be moving away from, so we don't want to save that. If you did work on something, then you actually do want to save that. So I won't save this because it was just a blank scene. And now you can see that we've loaded up the Stealth project. Now before we even get into navigation and how to move around this project window here, let's just go ahead and hit the play button and see what happens. Now with your keyboard, you can of course start moving your character around, and you could start exploring this game right here inside Unity. I can go ahead and press the play button again to pause that, and then we're back inside Unity again. So take a moment to explore the Unity website, jump into the Asset Store, click Browse, click on the top free ones, or any free ones that you can find, and then you'll notice that there is a huge wealth of Unity projects that you can open up inside Unity directly and start playing those games directly inside Unity, so you can get some major inspiration on what you're going to be working with and what we're going to be learning. And all we need to do is load it and import it in as I showed you a few moments ago, and then of course press that play button once we've navigated to the actual project file, which will always be this Unity icon. Once we have that loaded up, we can press play and start working with these Unity projects ourselves and exploring it not behind the scenes but also playing the game itself. If you just finished watching the last video where we were exploring how to download and import projects from the Unity website, you may have taken the time to actually explore many different free projects that are available here on the Unity website. But you may now want to know, how do I get between those projects? So all I did to get back to this blank space was go up to File, New Project, and then click Create New Project. So now I'm in an empty workspace with nothing in it. And let's say I want to navigate back to a folder that I had already downloaded from the Unity website. Well, we can again go up to File, and then down to Open Project. And it's really opening up the same dialog that we had earlier. It's just on a different tab now. So you can see New Project is over on the right-hand side, where we can create a new project, give it a name. And then Open Project has a whole bunch of recent projects. So you can see that I have a recent project here, like the Island demo or the Angry Bots. So I'll just click on Angry Bots and then open this project. And we'll give Unity a moment to load in all those assets. And just as we saw in an earlier video, in our asset list down here, what we want to do is navigate to the scene file, which is this Unity icon that we see here. This sometimes might be hidden in a folder or might just be in the main directory. So I'll double click on Angry Bots. And you can see that this view here changes, and if I were to press this play button, we're now inside the game itself. I'll press play again to go ahead and stop that simulation. So again, let's review. If we want to get back into another project, we can go to File, Open Project, and then we can go through this list of projects that we have here. This is kind of our recent list of projects that we've been working on, so I can click on Island Demo, and then of course Open Project. If we want to save any of the changes to the project we were just working on, we can save those. In this case I didn't do anything, so I won't save that. And then it'll go ahead and open up that Island Demo. Again, we can see in our asset list here we have the scene file, so I'll double click on the island scene file. That'll take a moment to load that scene in, and then we can press the play button. And in this case we have some broken directories in this project, so I'm not going to worry about this one right now. We'll just switch back to another one. So Open Project, and then we can move back to one of our blank projects. Now all of these are kept in a specific folder library. So you can see on my computer it's in Users, My Name, Desktop, and then this one's located on the desktop, and then this one's located in the Unity folder. So it's a good idea to already designate where you want to keep all your Unity projects in your computer so it's easy to find each one. But if you don't see it here in this list, of course you can click Open Other, and then you can navigate your system to actually find the project that you want to open up. So again, as I mentioned in the last video, take a moment to go through the asset store, browse the different free assets that are available here, download a few of these projects, and just get used to opening up projects, understanding where they're living on your system. Start organizing a few of these. Some of them are kind of big, but what you want to do is you want to download a few of these and organize them. That way you know how to get into specific projects, open them up, and switch between the two projects. And I find that that just really helps the learning experience a little bit more. Instead of just working with a completely blank project like this, where we're kind of looking at this blank empty space that we don't know what to do with, we have the ability already to jump into interesting projects and start understanding all the different assets that are propagated with each one of those projects. Let's take a moment to see how we can customize the Unity user interface. So we have a lot of different panels and tabs kind of floating around here. And what we want to look at is how can we kind of organize these. So you can see here I have a project tab and a console tab. I have a hierarchy view, my scene view, the game view, and of course our inspector. Now you'll notice all the way over on the right hand side here we have layouts, which we can also find here in our window menu by going down to layouts and choosing from here. But we have this quick pull down layout, so we could do something like a 2x3, 4 split. And what is this 4 split? What are we looking at here? Well, we're actually looking at the perspective view, which is kind of how you see the world. From this angle, we're actually looking at a top-down view, a front view, and a right view. We won't really talk about these views right now because in a moment, in a later video, we're going to actually get into navigation and moving around our scene. But right now, we just want to take a look at all these different panels that we're working with. So for instance, let's say you like this 4 split view and you want to see these, but you don't really need all these panels split up. Well, you can actually click on each one of these tabs here and drag a panel wherever you want. So I can actually take the hierarchy panel and kind of pair it up with the inspector. Everything kind of moves into place, and I can do the same with the project panel. Grab its tab and move that over. And now you can see we have the hierarchy, project, and inspector all over here on the right. And if I want to, I can kind of hover between the dividers of these areas and stretch them out or condense them down. So we have things in this way. Same thing with our views here. We can just hover over the center pane of the view and then slide things any way that we want. So you can see things are very customizable. Even if we wanted to take one of these views, for instance, we have our front view, and I wanted to add it here with the top view. And our right view, I want to add that with the top and front. So you can see now I'm just working with my perspective over here on the right, but if I want to switch between these tabs here to get between any of these views, top, front, or right, I can do so by quickly accessing these tabs, or I can just work here in the perspective. So again, going back to our default, we can go to tall, or what we'll be working with for the majority of these videos, we can go back to wide as well. So if you've messed things up the way I have here and you've been moving panels around and you want to get back to the way things look on my screen, then all we need to do is go up to Windows, go down to Layouts, and as I showed you in an earlier video, we can revert to factory settings, continue, and Unity will go ahead and snap everything back into place exactly the way we had it in the beginning of all these videos. So take a moment to kind of adjust all these different panels, take a look at the different layouts that you can work with, and adjust some of the tabs by moving them from one panel over to the next, and then take a moment to reset everything back to normal, just so you're familiar with how to do that. As we work, we may move things around a little bit, and I want you to be comfortable with that, and also comfortable with getting everything back to the default settings. The last thing I want to show you is something that I don't use very much, but I want you to be aware of just in case you accidentally fall into it. If you put your mouse over a specific window, for instance, right now I have my mouse over the scene view and I tap the space bar, you'll see that it optimizes that view to take up pretty much most of my screen. And then I can tap the space bar again. And I can go over to something like, let's say, the hierarchy view, tap the space bar, and you can see now the hierarchy fills my screen. So wherever my mouse is when I tap the space bar, so for instance now I'm in the assets area and I'll tap the space bar, it's going to optimize that so it fills up most of the screen. That way if you have a lot of assets to work with, or if you just want to focus on a specific area like the inspector, you can simply just put your mouse over that area, tap the space bar to optimize it or enlarge it, then tap the space bar to go back to this view. So I just wanted you to be aware of that just in case you actually jumped into a view like this and you say, well, where did everything go? All you need to do is tap the space bar again and you can get back to your default layout. So now that you've taken the time to hopefully download a few projects from the Unity website and play them in game mode by simply pressing this play button, let's start to learn how to navigate around the scene itself. And this is actually very simple. For this, you're actually going to need a 3-button mouse. Now, most of you probably already have a 3-button mouse, but some of you might actually just be using the trackpad on your laptops. It's important if you're working in any 3D application or inside Unity that you're doing this with a 3-button mouse. And what I mean by that, of course, is a mouse with 3 buttons on it. That there's a left mouse button, a middle mouse button, which is usually a roller, and a right mouse button. So to navigate around your scene, all you need to do is put your cursor here inside the scene view, hold down the Alt or Option key, and simply click on the left mouse button to tumble around your scene. Now you can actually tumble around a specific perspective or a point in space. If you hold down the Alt and Option key and push the middle mouse button, you can actually track up and down, left and right in your scene. And if you hold the Alt or Option key and press the right mouse button and move your mouse back and forth, you can actually zoom in and out of your scene. So take a moment to practice that. Alt and Option, depending on whether you're using a PC or a Mac, and left mouse button, you can tumble. Middle mouse button, you can track around your scene. And right mouse button, you can zoom in and out of your scene. Now, another important keyboard shortcut is the letter F. If you want to put your perspective on something in the scene, like for instance, if I were rotating around, let's say, this plant that we see here, as I rotate around, it kind of disappears out of view. If I want that to be my center of focus, all I need to do is click on it and press the F key, and you notice that I zoom down into that plant. And now as I rotate or tumble around my scene, it's right around that plant. So for instance, if I were to zoom out, track over, select something else, like maybe this over here, and press the F key, I'll zoom into that object, and then of course I can tumble, track, and zoom with my focus directly on that object. Another really great way to navigate around your scene is by using your keyboard buttons, and this kind of gives you the feeling like you're inside game mode. So, for instance, if I were to just use my mouse to position myself here, I can press the right mouse button and then press the W key, and as I do, you can see I move forward. If I press the S key, I'll move backwards. And anywhere that I point my mouse while holding down on the right mouse button, I'll essentially look. So I can navigate around this level like as if I'm playing a game. So I'm just tapping the W key and I'm using my mouse to zoom around the level or to look in specific directions that I'm moving in. So it kind of gives you an even easier way of navigating around this level and giving you a feel for what maybe a gamer would play or see. Although there's no bounds here, you can go through walls and you can pretty much do anything that you want. So W key is to move forward, the S key is to move backwards, and if you were to push the D key, you'll move to the right. The A key will move you to the left. The Q key will move you down. And the E key will move you up. So just another way of moving around these scenes. So it really depends on how you're working, on which method you'll use, but definitely take a moment to practice both methods. If you're a gamer, you're probably already used to navigating around a scene like this by using the keyboard options. And if you're a 3D modeler, then you're probably used to navigating around using the left, middle, and right mouse button. Now there is one more way you can kind of take a look at your scene, and that's using this widget up here in the top right. If I were to click on one of these cones here, you can see that my entire scene, let me just zoom out a little bit, is rotated to the back perspective. If I click on another cone, you can see now I'm facing the right perspective, and I can keep clicking on them. So now I'm in the front perspective, or I can click on this cone here at the top to move to a top-down perspective. So I'm now in my top view. Or I can click on that center square to switch back to perspective. Or isometric. So right now I'm in perspective, and if I click on it again, I'll be in isometric, and you can see that isometric kind of flattens everything out, which may be how you want to view this scene. You're probably familiar with a lot of different games that are all set up in isometric view, which is why you'd want this isometric option here inside Unity. So we can click that center square again, and then we're outside, back into our perspective view. So take a moment to navigate around your scene and explore. Like I said, download as many of these free scenes from, or these free projects from Unity, so you can explore different setups and really get a feel for all the different assets and all the different artwork that go into each one of these games. But again, being able to quickly navigate around an environment is going to make setting things up much, much faster. So take a moment to practice that and get good at your tracking, your tumbling, and of course your zooming. Now that we know how to navigate around a scene using our 3-button mouse, I'd like to show you how to start moving and manipulating objects. So let's start with a fresh new project where I don't want you to be in one of the more advanced projects with all of the different assets. We want to keep this simple so you could focus on just manipulating specific objects or game objects, or in some cases we'll call them mesh. So to start with a new scene, again, you're just going to go up to File, and you can go down to New Project or open up a blank project that you've created earlier. And what we want to do is create a simple object that we can start working with. And as I mentioned in earlier videos, most of the stuff that you're going to work with inside Unity you actually create somewhere else. So you might be in some sort of 3D modeling package like Maya, and you might create all your 3D models there, export them, and then you want to import them here inside Unity, which we'll talk about in a later video. But to create a simple object, all we need to do is go up to the main menu here and go down to Game Object. We click on that, and we can go to Create Other. And you can see we have a lot of different things we can create here, but we're only concerned about these primitives right now, this cube, sphere, capsule, cylinder, and plane. So let's start things off by simply clicking on Cube. And when we do that, you should see a cube show up here in your scene. And if you don't, just hit the letter F and it'll zoom in on that cube that's now selected. You can also, here in the hierarchy list, click on that cube, then hit the letter F and have it selected. So you notice here at the very top left of your screen you have this hand icon, this cursor, and these other little icons here. All of these are what we're going to use to manipulate objects inside Unity. So right now with the hand icon selected, I can simply click on an object to select it. If I click this next icon, it'll give me my move manipulator. So you can see these arrows show up with my selected object. So I'm just going to rotate around my object so you can see those arrows a little bit better. Now obviously if I click on the green arrow, click and drag, I can move my object up or in the y-axis. If I click on the red arrow and drag, I can move my object to the left or right or the x-axis. And the same is true with the blue arrow. If I click and drag with the blue arrow, I can move my object in the z-axis or forward and back. So take a moment to create your very first object here inside Unity and use these arrows to move this object around. The next icon is the rotate. So if I click on that, we'll get our rotate manipulator, and you can see that we get these rings now taking the place of where our arrows were. So I can click on the blue ring itself to rotate in a very constrained axis, meaning I'm only rotating in that angle. I can click the red ring to rotate just in that axis. and the green ring to rotate just around that axis. Or if you click in an empty area within all the rings, you can kind of free rotate in every angle. Now this is a little bit messy and difficult to get your cube facing an exact location like this, so it's actually a better idea to just grab the rings itself so you can rotate in a specific axis. Now depending on whether you're on a PC or Mac, you can do your typical undo, which is Command or Control Z. So I'll just hit Command Z a few times, or you can go up to your main menu and then do an undo there as well. Our next icon will be our scale icon, so I'll click on that and you can see we get our scale manipulators, which look like our moves, but instead of arrows we get these little cubes. So I can click on the green cube and just scale this up or to the side or front and back. And there's really no limits here in 3D space. You can scale that as big as you want. You can also click on the center cube to scale up in all directions proportionately. So if I were just undo and go back to that original cube and click here in the center, you can see I scale up evenly in all directions at once, or I can unproportionately scale in a very specific direction. Now something that's good to note just to speed up your workflow is that the keyboard shortcuts for these icons that we see up here are the letter Q, we get our hand back, W for the move, E for rotate, and then R for scale. One thing I forgot to point out with the move is you can also click here in the center of the move and just freely move it pretty much in any direction based on where you're facing with your camera. But again, that's a bit messy, and I like to just keep things constrained with the arrows so I can precisely position, rotate, and scale objects. So what I recommend doing right now is creating a simple cube object like this, and then creating a few more game objects. So again, game object, create other, we'll go down to cube, and just start setting up a basic level. You don't have to have anything really exciting in mind, just something simple with walls that you can start visualizing how you might have a character move around. So you can see now I've taken 2 cubes and set it up here inside my scene. And just take a moment to precisely scale things and get them into position. Again, getting used to this now is really going to speed up your workflow later on. Now, something that's good to point out is how to duplicate objects. So I could create another cube to be the other end of this wall over here, or I could duplicate this. And the way that we'll do this is we'll select that object, and if you're on a PC, you're going to hit Control D, or in my case, I'm on a Mac, I'm going to hit Command D. But either way, you can go up to Edit, and then down to Duplicate. And we've now duplicated that cube, so we don't have to rescale it, seeing we got its scale positioned perfectly. Another thing I could do is select multiple objects at the same time. So I can select this object, hold the Shift key, select this one, hold the Shift key and select that one. That way when I do an edit duplicate, I'm actually duplicating all of those objects together. So you can see if you start to create simple pieces of your level but want to duplicate those things, you actually can. And we can, of course, rotate and scale those duplicated objects as well all together. To delete, all you need to do is select an object, and again, depending on whether you're a PC or Mac, you'll do a Command or Control Delete. So in my case, I'm doing a Command Delete. You can select an object, Command Delete, or you can select that object and again go up to your Edit menu and scroll down to Delete. So I'll just select all of these, holding the Shift key, do an Edit, scroll down to Delete. So now let's create a few more objects. So again, I'll go up to Game Object, down to Create Other, and this time we'll create a cylinder. Again, you can hit the F key while it's selected to frame it. W for your move manipulator, so we can move this over, and we can again go game object, create other, and we could create something like a sphere this time. And then one more time we'll go up to game object, create other, and then we'll go down to cube. And we'll move that over so it's not sitting on top of our sphere. So we've already seen how we can use these icons here at the top left and our keyboard shortcuts Q, W, E, and R to move, rotate, and scale these objects. But I wanted to show you that here in your inspector, you also have values that are showing up. So you can see as I move this over, you can see that the Z value is changing for this cube. And if I were to hit the W key to get my rotate gyro and rotate this, you can see that we get these rotation values. So what's really nice about this is we can get very precise movement and rotation. So I can actually just zero out all my rotation now, and you can see that my cube will go back to its original alignment. And this is also true if you want to get things positioned well. So we can see the positioning of the cylinder is right here. So I can copy that X value, go over to my cube, paste that in there, copy its Y value and Z value, again go over to the cube, and then paste that into place, and then you can see that we get our cube and cylinder directly sitting on top of each other. So it's really easy to use these manipulators here, the move, rotate, and scale, but it's also good to know that you have your inspector to type in some values and also help you out if you actually rotate something out of place and you need it rotated or moved to a very specific location or scaled to a specific location. Let's say you have a bunch of cubes that have been duplicated from each other and one gets scaled a little differently. You can check their values here in the inspector as well. So take a moment to create a few different objects, primitives here inside Unity. Try scaling them, rotating them, and positioning them, and just start creating some basic levels. We're going to talk a little bit about creating geometry in other programs and importing it into Unity, but for right now this is a great way to just get some basic idea of how to create simple objects and how to start creating some simple levels. Even though you do create most of your stuff outside Unity and then import it, it is feasible that you could create an entire game using these primitives inside Unity.